I'm not quite sure what's going on with gaming journalism these days, and I use the air quotes because I'm just trying to fathom how these websites, these outlets, are writing these ridiculous articles, and then their management is approving them like, "Hey, this is a good idea. Let's this is a quite a take. Let's get your opinion on the internet for people to see." And we know why they do it, because if you have a ridiculous take or something that's just insufferable to read or listen to, it's going to get views, it's going to get clicks, people are going to react to it like I'm doing myself. Um but it's starting to get to the point where it's like I don't want to I don't want to read anything from anybody anymore. I don't want to hear anybody's opinion from these outlets because they're ridiculous. For last week we talked about the Resident Evil 5 being racist from IGN, and this week we've got a extremely hot take for Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Now this is coming from Polygon, which I to be fair, I never read Polygon. Most of the time I kind of forget that they exist. And this was quite an old article. This came out last year. So I'm gonna read it to you guys. I'm probably gonna have like some sort of Tears of the Kingdom video playing in the background, but let's just read it together and we'll talk about it. So this is kind of like the summary, I guess, before the actual article starts. And this is coming from Jay Costello. And again, this was published on July 22nd of 2023. Tears of the Kingdom's ending is its own kind of tragedy, perpetuating the status quo. I agree that Tears of the Kingdom isn't a story for our current times, but it is a story from our current times. One that says that clinging to the status quo is the equivalent of victory. It's the story told us by bosses who say their striking workers' demand are unrealistic. It's the story told by ineffective political leaders who refuse to challenge harmful government policy. It is the story that motivates regressive, transphobic laws. It's the story that allows for more oil drilling during the climate crisis. Yes, that was verbatim for what I just read. So we go. This is gonna be a wild article. So let's dive in. Tears of the Kingdom ends with everything back where it began. Ganondorf is defeated. Zelda returns and retakes her place on the throne. Link even regains his arm. The motley crew of helpers that he assembled on his journey comes together to pledge fealty to the crown. Zelda vows to dedicate herself to maintaining peace in Hyrule. Of course, we know that that won't succeed. The inevitability of the new Legend of Zelda game, a new iteration of Ganon threatening the princess and the world and being stopped by Link. It's so obvious that it's been canonized within the fiction itself. The three are locked in a cycle of reincarnation, driven in universe by mysterious divine forces, and out of universe by the franchise's ever-growing popularity. That cycle is the great tragedy beneath the entirety of The Legend of Zelda's narrative, and yet, Tears of the Kingdom's ending acts as if it's preserving things entirely how they were before its grand victory. To win is to return to the status quo. But The Legend of Zelda's status quo is running thinner every year. When Tears of the Kingdom was first announced, a peek at short-haired Zelda in the trailer had many people wondering if Nintendo would use the sequel to finally introduce a playable princess. Instead, her story is the same as it ever was. Even the Master Sword is given more agency. In the scene where it appears to her in the past, Zelda says that it has traveled through the time to find me and recover its strength, implying an intentional journey, while she is simply sent back by forces unknown. When she returns, of course, she returns to the throne, and being stranded in Hyrule's early years and meeting Rauru, the founder of the kingdom. She has learned that she has a ruler's bloodline stretching back as far as it can go, and possibly before that, if the rumors of the Zonai's divine blood are to be believed. The modern-day sages repeat almost verbatim the vow of loyalty that the previous sages returned to Rauru. This is a game that skipped advertising in my country, perhaps because of the death of the Queen. Anti-monarchy protesters at her successor's coronation were subject to arrests. There's no hint in The Legend of Zelda that anyone questions her right to absolute rule, other than Ganon. Zelda is presented as an entirely benevolent dictator. She wants peace without acknowledgement. That is a complicated word for those in power to be throwing around so casually. Still, the only threat to that is Minoru puts in a expository dialogue, a great evil emerging from the desert. This laughably loaded phrase and the racist tropes that have always been underpinned Ganon's story, like the gendered aspects of Zelda's repetitive role in the narrative, appear to skate by simply because this has been going on so long that mentioning them feels blas. Tears of the Kingdom does bring it in its own less well-trodden themes, before discarding them in a favor of neat conclusion. The game should have something interesting to say about bodies, for instance. Link loses an arm and gains a prosthetic. Zelda transforms herself entirely. Minoru is able to separate her spirit and use a robot construct, one that allows Link to pilot as a mech. But rather than giving any attention to the lasting impacts of those changes, or their thematic implications, the writer simply erased them. Minoru steps out of her constructed self and disappears, and Zelda's revival is giving a hand-wave explanation. The combined powers of her ancestors allowed her to do the impossible in return. Presumably, the same can be said about Link's arm, although it's never even acknowledged beyond a brief of surprise from our hero. What Tears of the Kingdom ultimately says about bodies is that in a neat, happy ending, they can only exist in one way. Prosthetics, scars, or deliberate modifications are blemishes that must be erased in the same sweep as the demon himself. Like the rest of the narrative, like the rest of the franchise, it doesn't celebrate anything changing. In their excellent piece on Tears of the Kingdom's ending, critic Harper J. asked if it's a story for our current times. They argue that a bolder, more honest ending might have Zelda trapped in her draconic form, never quite remembering why she is crying. That a bittersweet move like that would demonstrate that in order for evil to be defeated, there has to be a sacrifice that can't be swept away by conventional magical abilities. I agree that Tears of the Kingdom isn't a story for our current times. It is a story from our current times. One that says that clinging to the status quo is the equivalent of victory. It's a story told by us bosses who say their striking works demands an unrealistic. It's a story by ineffective political leaders who refuse to challenge harmful government policies. It's the story that motivates regressive transphobic laws. It's a story that allows for more oil drilling during the climate crisis. It's a story that reflects the current corporate media landscape more broadly. Remakes, sequel, AI regurgitating the most average output of everything it's been fed. 45 advertisement movie based on Mattel IP, included the grounded and gritty Hot Wheels. Everything is something you've seen before against bigger. Once Nintendo used the success of Ocarina of Time to make Majora's Mask something surprising and tonally unique, this time it did not. What would break these cycles? Tears of the Kingdom isn't interested in asking. It takes us back to the beginning, so they were ready to do it all over again, leaving no room for the fact that this is apparent victory is really its own kind of tragedy. I don't have a lot of words after reading this ridiculous article. Just the fact that he mentioned, the Queen passing, which is why they didn't get a lot of, I guess, ads, and nobody, pushing back against Zelda and why she is the rightful ruler of Hyrule when, let's face it, why is the royal family still have anything to do with with the UK? Like it's so utterly ridiculous. Like nobody over there is like, yeah, maybe the royal family kind of sucks. But I digress. And then of course, because Ganondorf is a Gerudian, from Gerudo, that's always been in the West, always been, in the desert, in Hyrule. All of a sudden, that's That's got to be racist. Are we kidding me? Are we kidding me? Like it's the most ridiculous takes that I've ever heard in my life when it comes to gaming. And then the whole argument about like the body and, like it's okay for, people to lose their limbs, and like you don't always have to go back to being perfectly, as you were. It's not a prosthetic that Link gets. It's Raru's arm. Like it is actual arm. So yeah, when the story has been said and done, Raru came in and he took his arm back, and I guess he healed, he healed Link's arm, right? And then as far as Zelda goes, yeah, it could have been an interesting story, if they let Zelda, left her in her draconic form. Like that could have been like kind of a tragedy story that she sacrificed herself to save Hyrule, but she did sacrifice herself. But it's Nintendo. Like they wanted it to be a happy ending. So I think it's fine, that she was brought back and like her ancestral powers brought her back to life. I don't see a problem with that. And yeah, Zelda usually always goes back to the beginning, where everything is copacetic and everybody is somewhat happy and there's peace in Hyrule. But this game is a sequel to Breath of the Wild, which they had, the 100-Year War that they lost. Link died and they brought him back. And then, it was a couple years later after they defeated Ganon, Calamity Ganon, Hyrule was being rebuilt. So it didn't just go all the way back to prior to when Calamity Ganon was involved. Like Hyrule still went through the tragedy that it did with Calamity Ganon, and then, and then Ganondorf came about. So it didn't go back to the beginning. It went back to, not really to the beginning of anything. There's peace in Hyrule now. They defeated Ganondorf, and there's peace in Hyrule until something inevitably happens again, or these specific characters die and they get reincarnated into the endless cycle that they are involved in. Like that's just Zelda stories. But to say everything went back to the beginning, it didn't, because this is a sequel, and they didn't just erase everything that happened in Breath of the Wild. They just found peace in Hyrule again. So again, ridiculous take. I just find, I mean, people can have whatever opinions they want, and if they think, this is transphobic, if they think this is against, for, Zelda is for oil drilling, or not questioning political leaders and this and that, that is certainly a take that you can definitely have, and more power to you if you truly believe it. But who the hell is allowing these articles, like reading the articles and saying, you know what, this is a good thing to put out? This is my problem in like gaming journalism right now. It's everybody's got like this mindset where everything has to, just because something has been the same or whatever the case is, like they're reaching and trying to make it political and real world problems, when it's I hate the phrase, it's just a video game, but it's just a video game. Like it's Nintendo telling the story that they wanted to tell in a long running franchise. I don't know. It's I hate it here sometimes. It's insane. But let me know in the comments below what you guys think. Go and read the article if you want to. I know I was towards the end of me reading it, I was starting to get a little bit winded with trying to keep up with that voice. So go read it if you want to, if you want to hear it again, or read, listen to it again, whatever the case is. But yeah, let me know in the comments below what you guys think, and I'll I'll see you in the next video. Thank y'all so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. Consider subscribing to the channel. I'll let YouTube algorithm pick one of my videos below for you guys to watch. Give it a click, and I hope you enjoy, and I will see you in the next video.